All right. Greetings, everyone. I'm Karen of Tina and Karen's Do the Tube. And I just want to talk today about Referendum 90. Now, maybe you've heard of Referendum 90. It's been on a lot of headlines since March, when our governor of our state, Jay Inslee, first wanted to put a comprehensive sex education bill that would be, quote, age appropriate into law. But there were enough opponents to this comprehensive sex education bill that it is now on the ballot for November's general election. Now, supporters say the younger grades, it can help kids understand how to build healthy relationships and friendships. It is really important factors for abuse prevention and intervention. Courtney Norman with Planned Parenthood said, knowing that private parts are private, who are your trusted adults that you can go to? Many school districts in the state already teach this type of curriculum, and supporters say parents can see it and be involved. Sex education is age appropriate, and districts and parents will have local control to choose a curriculum that fits their community. So on the surface, Referendum 90 doesn't seem too controversial. And if it actually achieves what it claims that it aims to achieve, seems like a very positive thing. Referendum 90 highlights affirmative consent, something I'm for. And if it can actually help children understand what is inappropriate touching at an earlier age, it could, in theory, help fight child abuse, child molestation by pedophiles, which, let's be honest, I think everyone's in for. That's a bipartisan issue that we are challenging. No one is in favor of pedophilia. Well, that's not 100% true. Many are in favor of pedophilia. The Netflix film Cuties got incredibly attacked from all sides for its sexual exploitation of 11-year-old girls. Netflix came out and defended it, saying they would not take it down and they respect all sides. Well, kudos to the balls on Netflix for not taking it down for the overwhelming pressure they were feeling, especially since that pressure was probably well-deserved. But it doesn't seem to me that a lot of the powers that be are really as anti-pedophilia as they might want you to believe. We all remember the Jeffrey Epstein scandal of last year when he was murdered. Epstein didn't kill himself. I think that's common knowledge at this point. Now, this bill does have its opponents, and what they say, we had testimony from 2 girls at a Senate hearing who lived through a rollout of that at the school because it changed the culture at their school, which is the goal of some who say that this sex ed is for social change. Holes says she's not against sex education, but believes the type laid out in these guidelines goes too far. We have examples directly from the curriculum on our Facebook page that people can go and look at for themselves. See what they describe is age appropriate for your child. And that's a good point. So I did. I went to their page, Informed Parents of Washington. Now they got this opinion piece from a retired police officer in Centralia. Dedicated his life to protecting children. And he said, based on my experience and training, I can confidently say that, in my opinion, S85395, the mandated comprehensive sex education bill, is nothing but a framework for grooming children to be victims of sexual abuse and an obscene assault on innocence. The bill and the curricula that complies with its mandates, FLASH and the 3 R's, violate the most basic principle of child sex education, namely, when a child is ready for the answer to a question about sex, they will ask the question. And by the way, Flash and the 3 Rs are free programs that the school districts don't have to pay for. In a state where most schools are underfunded and lack resources for basic educational needs, which programs do you think they will choose? In my interview with both victims and the offenders who will admit it, they both report, almost without exception, the use of desensitizing as a means to induce a child to participate in sexual activity without resistance. This is done by introducing them to sex toys, pornography, inappropriate affection until the child is comfortable with these things and their natural fear is overcome. It does feel very eerie, doesn't it? It feels off. There's something not quite right with the world. Now, Jay Inslee, who is an asshole, he's our beloved governor and tyrant, I don't trust for a second. I think he's a major liar. He lied about not knowing what Antifa was. He lied about the fact that he didn't know that Seattle had been taken over by anarchists, essentially, forming the CHOP, or Chaz. I like Chaz. Sounds way more appropriate for what it was. He claimed he didn't know anything about it, so that either makes him perhaps one of the most ineffective and incompetent governors in the whole country, or a moron. Well, actually, that's more or less the same thing. I would call him a liar. Here we have an article. Jay Inslee back in 2014. Jay Inslee ran on a promise not to raise taxes. He broke that promise right away. He proposed $1.5 million in new taxes. He's also suggested taxes on soda, taxes on beer, taxes on pretty much anything. I don't think there's actually been a governor in Washington who's wanted to increase taxes as much as Inslee has. Now, if that is what your platform is, by all means, make that your platform. What I have a problem with is the lying. You see, what I respect about Bernie Sanders versus Elizabeth Warren is Bernie Sanders said straight up, yeah, your taxes are going to go up. Elizabeth Warren said, no, we can pay this all by taxing the rich, which is just mathematically impossible. So I can disagree with Sanders on a ideological level and an ethical level, but actually not on an ethical level. I actually trust Bernie Sanders now. I like him in that regard. I think he's genuine. Elizabeth Warren was a fucking terrible candidate anyways. But more back to Referendum 90. Is this just fear tactics, or is this actually a part of what seems to be a changing culture? There's been a growing number of complaints made towards Washington's schools because as these lockdowns have promoted video conferencing with the students, more parents are able to get direct feedback on what their kids are being taught. And what their kids are being taught is propaganda and more activists pretending to be teachers, a performative teacher. There are actual teachers out there, but I think a lot of them just would rather push their social agenda on the kids. Now, does that social agenda include pedophilia? I don't know. But I do know this headline. Sorry, my computer's slow. Child sex trafficking risks are increasing because of COVID-19. Why? According to representatives from FBI, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and the U.S. Department of Justice, yada, 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 online sex trafficking has doubled since the start of 2019 lockdowns. Sorry, COVID-19 lockdowns. Traffickers have quickly adapted their methods of online trafficking. Human services agencies have also seen an increased report of parents and relatives trafficking children. This is a little bit of a digression, but I'll give you my overall thoughts on COVID-19. The powers that be want to treat COVID-19 as a vacuum. All that matters to them is we reduce the number of COVID-19 deaths. Anything that happens as a consequence of trying to reduce the amount of COVID-19 deaths is acceptable, as long as that number of deaths stays low. We see an increase of depression, anxiety, suicide. long as COVID-19 deaths are low. We see child trafficking increase, more than double, as long as COVID-19 deaths are low. You definitely get the aura that we're being distracted, that we're being manipulated. Especially when you look at the overall statistics of COVID-19 and you realize, why are we reacting the way we are? Now, certainly COVID-19 can be dangerous to certain parts of the population, but for the vast majority of us, it's not really that big a deal. And I know that's an unpopular thing to say, but I don't have the tab up right now. My computer's too slow to do it, so maybe I'll do it in a future video. But 89% of those that have died under the age of 65 had a pre-existing comorbidity. Now, some might say that like being obese is a comorbidity, and the United States has a large obese population. Yes, but that still doesn't imply that like a 30-year-old man who's in good health or a 40-year-old man or a 50-year-old man who's in good health is going to die, and that has been the message. You go outside, you're going to die. It's been laden into our subconscious. People are scared, and they're really not really sure why. I mean, the whole idea of the lockdowns was let's not overwhelm the healthcare system. As far as I can tell, only New York was the only place in the country that actually reached crisis level. So why are we still acting as if this is the great pandemic that it was? Deaths are way down across the board, every state for the most part, I believe. They'll always point to the number of cases. They're shifting the goalpost. I think all that really should matter is the number of deaths. And I think something like we have an average 14-day running death toll of under 10 here in Washington State. But we can't move into phase 3. What a joke, Inslee. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to say is I don't get the impression that our leaders are on our side. Now, are they supporting pedophilia? That might be a bit of a stretch. But at the same time, I'm going to sound like one of those QAnon people right now, and fuck, maybe I'm turning into a QAnon person, but just all the blatant sexualization of students, of kids, it's just so apparent. We all see it, right? It's not just me. There's memes upon memes of people saying like, 13-year-olds when I was 13, 13-year-olds now. When I was in 7th grade, what kids like in 7th grade now? And always the joke is that young kids were kids then, and now they're sexual objects now. It's not a really hard leap of faith or leap of reason in order to get to the point where you think, yeah, things have gotten more sexualized. The culture, certainly. And the culture has a trickle-down effect on children because the children absorb more culture than I think older people do. Now, there was a part of me when I see memes like that. Is it that children nowadays are more sexualized now than they were then? Or has my perception changed? Certainly when I'm a 13-year-old chasing 13-year-old girls, I didn't see them as overly sexualized. But I'm 15 and 16, I definitely didn't think of them as overly sexualized. I wanted them to be more sexual. Just kidding. But now, as you grow older, now children become the thing you're meant to protect. They're not there as objects of your desire. At least a healthy person, they're not objects for your desire. I see children now as things things you need to protect. And is this criteria, the curriculum actually laid out? I need to switch over a little bit. There's another post here that actually showed you the curriculum. Here it goes. So this is straight from the Health Education Core. Here, in Anatomy and Physiology. In kindergarten, understand that boys and girls have some body parts that are the same and some are different. Okay, not too dangerous there. Grade 1, identify medically accurate names for body parts, including external reproductive anatomy. Number 2, grade 2, use medically accurate names for body parts, including external reproductive anatomy. Grade 2. Recognize medically accurate names for body parts, including internal and external reproductive anatomy. This is a leap forward. Now, as I recall, we didn't have any sex education until grade 5 when I was growing up. But by grade 2, they're basically getting all the gists. Now, one might argue that boys and girls know that boys and girls are different. I mean, we all know that boys had PPs and girls had vajayjays, but we didn't say that. Pee holes is what I used to call them. But grade 2? How old is grade 2? That's like 6 or 7 or something like that? And maybe it's a little older than that, but still, it's goddamn young. I guess the unspoken part about all this is it takes the parents out of the role of the child's development. And now I can recall a friend of mine who told me that he was introduced to sex at a very early age. I think he had sex. He lost his virginity at 11 or 12 to an older girl. And now it must be mentioned that he came from a very unstable family and an unstable home. So is the argument for this that, yes, a stable family will be able to explain sex appropriately to their child, but for the kids that do not have such stable homes, they need the schools to provide this information so that they can protect themselves from pedophilia? Or is the argument that this is just a way to sexualize kids so that we can actually exploit their sexualization earlier? I don't know. I haven't decided which way to vote on this referendum just yet. I certainly have a way I'm leaning. But I'd rather hear what you guys think. All right. Thank you for listening to this talk. Please like and subscribe, and share your thoughts. What do you think about this Referendum 90? Do you think that... Oh. Sorry there. Do you think that children are being sexualized too young, and this is a way to further along their sexualization? Or is it a way for children to properly call out abuse? It's possible. But I don't trust Olympia. All right. For Tina and Karen Do the Tube, I'm Karen. Stay safe. Stay hydrated. Love y'all.